Hi everyone, good evening from Queen Rani Teacher Academy. Welcome to the Facebook page. We're going live now. We're just waiting until people get into this. So we have until people come in. Please, I want you to give me thumbs ups and just shout out. Just shout out. Give me a message that you can see me very well on the screen, or good. I can see thumbs up coming up here. Just give me a thumb up. Okay, that my voice is clear as well. I just need to see that. Just give me a thumb up. Okay, I'm in. Just your thumb up, please. Okay, all right. That's good. Can see more people. Oh, good. Thank you very much for the thumb ups and hearts. These keep me encouraging. Oh, that's very good. Okay, all right. That's very great. So, good evening everyone. مساء الخير جميعا. كل عام وانتم بألف خير. رمضان كريم وإن شاء الله ربنا يعيده علينا وعليكم بألف صحة وسلامة. I would like to welcome you on the QRTA Queen Rani Teacher Facebook on the Queen Rani Teacher Academy's Facebook page. We as part of the QRTA we continue to deliver online or deliver live sessions tackling, addressing and talking about issues relevant to teachers facing this crisis, the COVID-19. The session today is about teaching English online, concerns and opportunities. I would like to introduce myself to you. My name is Ababna. I'm an English teacher educator. I work at the Teacher Education Professional Diploma. We prepare teachers to be teachers for the future. We help them develop skills and knowledge to be professional teachers and to go very confidently to the classroom. That's very good. So we posted three questions on Facebook 3 days ago. And I want to start with the first question. I'm going to ask the question in here and I want you to put that in the chat box. It's only you, me and the chat box. So the first question is about what are the difficulties and opportunities of moving English classes online. Again, what are the difficulties and opportunities of moving English classes online? Let me just share with you some concerns, the teachers' concerns about that. So I remember like 6 weeks ago when we had that crisis, when schools shut down all over the world, and Jordan was one of them. Teachers as English lab teachers, and I've been teaching English for 18 years. I know that teaching English, teaching a foreign language is very difficult in face-to-face environment. So this even becomes really difficult when it goes to the virtual world. So I know that some of the teachers' concerns or the challenges, they were saying that one is that students are not showing up on live sessions. If we have, for example, live sessions, students are not doing the assignments on time, they're not submitting them on time even, they're not showing up. And again, maybe there is a concern that which is very important, that's the physical or the emotional bond between the students and the classroom has broken, and this what makes them or what keeps them being apart from learning. Many other concerns are in the teachers' heads, and we know that this is a big problem. But here is the thing. I'm going to give you strong advice on that. But here is the thing. I just want to quote what His Majesty said in his interview on the telly on Face the Nation 3 or 4 days ago. He said, Mother Nature gave us a big kick up the backside. And that's, if we put that in the context of education, I think that we as teachers learnt a lot. We have been learning a lot from online learning. So for example, I grew up knowing a lot about technology, knowing about the pros and cons of using technology in the classroom and outside the classroom, but you never thought that's going to be that wonderful. So one of the things that came up, I think, was about the interaction, and this is very, very important because let me just look here what says. One of the comments came that students don't have interaction with the teacher, and for that, if we just look at one of the opportunities, is that when, for example, when we interact with our students, when we interact with them in face-to-face communication, we have that synchronous interaction. Like, for example, now you're sending me messages, I'm looking at the messages, I'm going to respond to them, and responding to them quickly make my cognitive thinking goes very fast. That I want to respond to these questions, I have to put my input right away. But in asynchronous communication, we have to wait a bit, we have to be offline, we have to give a task for our students. So for example, giving a task online and giving some time for your students to watch that, to look at it, to absorb it, to understand it, this reflects on or improves their metacognitive learning, improves their metacognition, improves their reflection, and this gives them more time to think about it. So exactly when you give me a task, for example, you ask me a question, you want me to put that, I can do that in 2 words, maybe a paragraph, maybe a page, but if you give me until tomorrow morning, then I would come up with a chapter. That's exactly the same thing. So let me just look at that. Thank you very much for all the thumbs ups and the love and the hearts. Let's see if we have any questions in there. Up to now, we didn't have any questions. So all of that, thank you very much. Everyone's enjoying watching. Thanks a lot for that. So let me just read this. It is one from Iman. Thank you, Iman, for this comment. She said here, we always emphasize on the importance of differentiation and cooperative learning among the students, and this seems impossible in distance learning. And the teachers faces challenges in developing the skills of the students because most of them didn't interact. I might disagree with you here, because if you just look at it, we know that in face-to-face communication, we always use differentiation and inclusion. But again, at the same time, when you give, for example, tasks to your students, let's say that, again, back to the asynchronous interaction. I know that some students, they have visual memory, they have strong visual memory than others. So for example, if you give them a task, they might take some time to read it. They have to go through the questions or through the text one more time. Others would have finished with it. So when you give that at their self-paced, no time pressure, they have their time to think about it. They have their time to reflect on the questions. They have their time to absorb it. And then you as a teacher would give other tasks to students. Those who are very strong, you can give them, for example, maybe more difficult tasks. Let's say reading comprehension. You can give them, let's say, opinion, application, let's say evaluation, opinion, or communicative, let's say, tasks. Whereas, for example, those students, you can still give them time to work on their self pace. So again, differentiation is there, I can see it, and inclusion again is there. But it's the thing how you structure your task, how you structure your material online. Another thing here is we have from Asma. Thank you, Asma, for that. What are the ways of motivating our students to learn English online? For the record, I gave them fun activities points, not marks, to their work, and I have a good relationship with them. However, some of them aren't communicating with me in the class yet. I agree with that, because think about it as a teacher. So for example, when you look at that, you think that maybe sometimes you just need to do a PowerPoint presentation. And you upload it on a platform, or you send it to their emails, and that's not actually the way that it works. You need sometimes to be on live session, be live with your students. You need to show up. And I know that some teachers might say, "Oh, I can't, for example, show up live when my camera is while my camera is on." And with that, I would agree with you that even if your camera is off, still you can develop your students' thinking skills. So you, for example, help them to be attentive. I know that in face-to-face communication, I'm using my body gestures. I'm using my body language. So now you can see what I'm saying, what I'm talking. You can understand what's that. But again, when the camera goes off, you are helping your students. You're motivating them to develop thinking skills. So again, with that sense, the students are being engaged with you. So they need to understand what the teacher is saying, what he's trying to do, what he's trying to say, how he's trying to do it, how he's trying to say it. So you need to be live. You need to go live with your students. You need to structure that. And again, another thing is you need to structure tasks for your students to keep them engaged. So it's not, again, to put, for example, a task and that's it. You need to structure time with your students. So for example, I'm going to go language systems this week. I'm going to go, for example, language skills the week after. For the language skills, for example, I want to do 1, 2, and 3. For the language systems, I want to do 1 and 3. And if you just look at that thing, then this, for example, in this lesson, we're going to do 1, 2, and 3. In that lesson, we're going to do 1, 3. And then you put reflective questions and you keep your students engaged with that. Okay, so here I can't apply different teaching strategies. This is Dua. She's saying I can't apply different teaching strategies. Maybe like one thing that's sometimes that concerns me as a teacher is that I would look at it as a kind of, like when we think about, for example, moving into online learning, is that we have to adopt different styles. And that's not the thing. The thing is that if you are very professional in the face-to-face communication, you can be very professional again in the virtual environment. What you need to do is just you have to use your skills, but with a bit of techniques. So for example, here there's a question from one of our colleagues. Here says here, is it applicable to teach listening online? What is the best method? I'm going to answer this question and I'm going to link it with what he said, but I'm receiving a lot of comments here, so I just want to go through the comments and see what's in there. I feel that students of low achievers don't get their needs through online education. And here we have Dalal saying here, how might we invite students to interact in asynchronous learning? Again, what you need to do with your students is that it's the way how you structure it, the way how you keep them motivated is how you structure your material online. So for example, and this is with the listening, I know that teaching listening is not an easy thing to do. So I developed one exercise, very simple exercise. It's 30 seconds. I call it 30-second exercise. 30-second exercise. It's about Robin Atkin interview with Elton John. I just looked at an outside material. I took that script from a video, exactly 74 words, and from those words I structured 4 exercises to include all students, to include the, I would call them not the low level, but low level learners, but I would call them the weak or maybe not confident students, and also the students in the middle, and also the strong students. So the first question was about dictogloss. How, for example, you put students into that you just listen, and they need to fill in content words, that words that have different meanings in different contexts, and functional words like, for example, therefore, and however, those are closed words. And the second question and I think to fill in these spaces. The third question was about vocabulary, and the last one was about connected speech. The connected speech one was actually for those who are higher levels. So again, for your question here, what you need to do is exactly as Daniel Goleman said in his book, Emotional Intelligence. I would call it is that you need to keep flow. So for example, if you bring questions that are very hard for students, then students become frustrated, they become demotivated, they won't actually be engaged in learning. And if you bring, for example, questions that are very, very simple, and that's beyond the students, it just goes so far, then students become overconfident. So what you need to do is you have to keep flow. Here's, for example, the questions. Here's the students level. You bring something that's over their competence, their linguistic competence, and then you keep raising the bar. When students keep moving, then you keep raising the bar. Exactly the same thing for low and high achiever students. Let's have a look here. We have. Thank you very much for the wonderful chat here. Which content should teacher choose or pick? Keep the students involved. Actually, you have the language systems and language skills. Whatever content suits them. If you mean content, if you can explain what you mean by that, is it content? Is the language systems and the language skills in here? For example, reading and writing. So if you see that your students are more, then students need. So they're able to produce the language, they need to focus on that. Let me see here, there's another comment coming up. So we have here, Ra'id says, as teachers, we lack the ability to use the new technological tools so that we present our lessons, and we need to learn how to focus on the task students in this process of learning. I agree with you, and we're learning. This is a learning process for everyone. We are learning, we are developing our skills, but again, what you need to do is, when you turn into online learning, you think that, or because that's how we thought about it 6 weeks ago, that we need to have all the skills. Again, you don't need all the skills, just very simple ones. What you need to do, if you have very basic skills, working on platforms such as Zooms, for example, or Zoom or Teams, Office 365, or if you have Skype, or Vimo, for example, you have these very basic skills, still you can tell your instruction. Look at Zoom, for example. If you want to put students into groups, you can put them again in breakout rooms. Just look at the features, look at the tutorials, look how you can engage your students in the virtual environment. Again, it's not the skills that you have, it's the instruction that you do with your students, how you structure your material to keep them engaging for your students. Here we have from Faiz, how to maintain student focus through distance learning. What you need to do with your students if you are teaching them, for example, English. So I know and I noticed that when teachers, for example, put their materials, they just only put PowerPoint presentations, and with, for example, direct questions. And they ask the students to do the direct questions and then again to upload them back to the, for example, to the platform. Doing such a thing wouldn't motivate students' cognitive thinking. It wouldn't motivate their, let's say, meta learning. So what you need to keep them motivated is that you have to ask them reflective questions. For example, after they do the task, sit with them, for example, half an hour, send them questions. So say, for example, which part do you like the most in this exercise? Which part didn't you like the most and why? How do you think we should move forward? What do you think about this, for example, X character in the story? Asking reflective questions and listening to students' inputs will be a lot, because when students feel that they are engaged with this, when they feel that there are questions that they can answer, that they can be engaged with, they feel that they're motivated towards learning. Again, let's see what questions we have. So here, do you think it's successful in public schools in Jordan now? I mean, online. Thanks a lot, Mister. Yes, of course, why not? As you can see, you can't actually stick only to the course book. Let me tell you about myself. I graduated from high school 22 years ago, and back then I wouldn't be able to construct a sentence in English. And I learned my English through online from online learning resources. That doesn't mean that I didn't learn from the university, but I had a lot of semantics and syntax and phonology sessions and courses. But the thing is that because I grew up in a school where the teachers used to focus a lot on the grammar, and there was a lot of translation. I graduated from grade 12. Actually, I didn't find the English that in my school. So again, when I looked at the online world, I mean, when I listened to the radio the first time in English, when I just watched the news in English, that was very, very difficult for me to understand. And then I was questioning myself, what, for example, I was doing for 12 years that I can't understand, for example, a phrase or a sentence. And then I just set myself a plan that I want to listen a lot, because that is actually what improves my understanding. Then I would be able to catch up with the language. And that's how I did it. I spent some years while I developed my listening comprehension. And from that one, I was able to catch up with the language. So we as teachers, if we just think, for example, that the book itself, the action pack is the solution, the action pack is not the solution, because the action pack is just in the classroom. But when students go outside the classroom, they are shocked with the environment. They can't actually communicate. It's because of the language, the artificial language, I would call it, in the classroom, is not there outside the classroom. Here we have a comment in... I think that we answered this, but I'm going to say it in Arabic. هل من ممكن أن يكون التعلم عن بعد من بديهيات التعلم المدرسي لاحقا? It could be yes, why not? Again, as I said at the beginning, we as teachers never expected that this is going to be a reality. But again, look at, for example, everything now, all the schools, everything. English has been completely, all the classes have moved online. So why not, for example, looking at that experience and learn from it in the future? Why, for example, not looking at other resources that can help our students? What else we have here? Get students excited about, Dalal said here, get students excited about producing content using applications. Even first graders would love to post videos talking about their routine or describing a favorite thing. Amazing, super, that's right. So for example, if you can ask your students, okay, I want you now in speaking, give them a question, give them a prompt, give them a picture, an image or whatever, ask them to describe it, and then they can post it. And when they post it, you can look at the language. You can just listen to the students' output, because as students, they need to be listened to. They need to see that the teacher is taking their output seriously. So when you listen to them, you can just say, wow, that's wonderful, great. Ask follow-up questions. What do you think about that? Online, you can just pair them. Even if you have only one, you can be the ball, you can be yourself, you can be the pair. So ask your students questions. What do you think about? And then bring that language and then work with them on the language and how we can develop it, how we can develop that 1 minute, for example, speaking into 2 or 3 minutes. Questions here. How can we encourage our students to engage and interact in online sessions? I think we answered this question. We answered this comment. So we have here from Salim. Distance learning is new here in Jordan public schools, but they use it in the USA. True. but also you know that we're teaching a language, an international language, and we have to catch up with the world. So I think it's very important to learn this, and again, if we don't learn it now, then when are we going to learn it? Rola here says, allow for pause time to engage students and give them a task to complete. Wonderful, that's very good, because this is actually the asynchronous interaction. When you give a task to students, you give them, for example, a day or two, they think about the question, think about the task, and then they come back with their outputs. Here we have in questions, pause time, Hiba Abu Jabara said here, pause time and reflection are very important. Students need to think about what they're learning exactly. That's right, because this develops the self-learning or self-assessment. Okay, so we have Ala. Quality performance assessment takes educators through the process of creating valid and reliable performance assessments defined as multi-step fair tasks with a clear criteria and expectations. I would agree with you. I'm going to talk about assessment in a minute, but I'm just going to take one. I'm going to take one comment from here and from here as well. Ala, as she says here, how can I assess my students effectively in the distance learning? Okay, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but let me just take one. Let me take one comment from here. We have. That is from Dr. Al-Muhandis Muhammad Shakir. Our students need support to be able to adapt the online learning style. I recommend mobile apps to teach students English language in easy way. Some of these apps already exist, just need more marketing so students become aware of it. I agree with that. Maybe it's not about marketing, maybe just like to get teachers involved in that. And again, if you don't use it, then you don't know it. So apps like Zoom, maybe you can use Skype, maybe Vimo, all of those you can try them as a teacher, try them with your students and see the facilities they provide there. Okay, Ala. So Ala and another, they ask here, how can I assess my students effectively in the distance learning? If we just, for example, look at assessment, if we just look at it in terms of just, for example, posting a quiz, a shorter quiz, let's say out of 10 or 20, posting, for example, a grammar quiz with 20 questions, put that on a school's platform or any other platform, and that's it. Students do it in 20 minutes and that's it. Then you should ask yourself as a teacher, what's the point? What's the benefits? What did my students learn? Is it exactly what I've been doing, for example, for 2 months? Now, this is the 6th week. Is, for example, how you evaluate your students, just like, for example, in short quiz, as a teacher, what are you going to do to keep them engaged? So I think that what you need to do with your students is not just only one type of assessment, just one, for example, one grammar quiz. You need to decide exactly what do you want to get out of your students' learning. You need to test if, for example, they've learned what they should have learned. So in terms of in terms of the let's say of the parts that you want to test with your students, think of, for example, grammar. Are you going to decontextualize language or contextualize language? I will give you an example. If I, for example, I'm a teacher in grade 7 and I know that I taught students the tenses, and I taught them the relative clauses, and I taught them, for example, the discourse markers, like the linkers, you would say, but and however, etc. If I look at these and I just like to bring sentences and give those to students and choose from A, B, or C, do you think that even if students get full mark or they don't get a full mark, that they really mastered what should have been mastered? If this is the way, then we should ask ourselves, why, for example, when we give them a writing task, they can't do it? Why, for example, when we ask them to speak, they can't do it? Why, when we give them a listening exercise, they can't do it? And here is the thing. So even if you want to do assessment, try to think of it in terms of how can you contextualize language. So, for example, if I want to teach a grammar, I want to test a grammar and I want to test writing, I would bring, for example, a paragraph where I take out, for example, from this paragraph, I would underline, let's say, I would put the target language in it, the things that I want to test. I would take out the tenses, I would take out, for example, the linkers, and I would put that and ask the students, for example, to try to fill in the missing words. That's one of the things. When students look at a paragraph as one paragraph, complete paragraph, so it's not only the tenses work, the tenses, the relative pronouns, the conjunctions, the connectives, etc., etc. So it's not only just one, for example, one skill or one target language that you focus on your students. So it's kind of complementary. If you want to test, for example, writing, are you going to come up with, for example, writing output where you have, for example, one paragraph that you're going to ask students to write about? So tell me about your holiday. Tell me about, describe the online learning. How is it? Go through the pros and cons of online learning. Are you going to do that? Or are you going to bring, for example, 3 or 4 or 5 exercises where you need to see if the students are learning? So, for example, the first exercise could be about discourse markers. So here's a paragraph I want you to put in, for example, therefore, however, in these blanks. Another question, you ask them, for example, you give them relative pronouns, and I want to hear the sentences, and I want you to combine these together. The third question, you bring them, for example, the discourse markers, the written discourse markers that we use. The fifth question, you ask them to reorder paragraphs. The sixth question, you ask them, for example, to write a paragraph. So you need to go gradual. How, for example, it is that. Maybe the question that is, oh, how I'm going to do this? You don't need to have all of this time. Just 6 exercises. Students can do 3 minutes, for example, for each exercise, 15 to 20 minutes maximum. And then in that sense, you will be able to assess and see, for example, if students really improving. So instead of focusing on writing output, you're focusing on writing process. In that sense, is not only just producing a topic, but also just working with the mechanics of the language. And that's one of the things you can do. Another thing you can do with assessment is you can put the exam or the test under time conditions. So, for example, you allow them just only 15 minutes to do the test. 15 or 20 minutes, they can do the test, and that's it. Because I know that some teachers sometimes might be, for example, they get help from members of the family, or they have WhatsApp group. If you just put, for example, reading comprehension, you have multiple choice questions A, B, C, and D, and you have 2 distractors, and you have 2, for example, similar, we see that this is the answer. The 2 distractors should be quite challenging. If you want more advice on that, you can refer back to a drag platform. They've got very nice exercises from 7 to 12. You can look at that, just see how the questions are set up. It's wonderful. So again, how you put your questions, how you make them involving and engaging. This is a very wonderful thing. Okay, what are the disadvantages of distance learning? A very, very good question. Thank you very much, Farah, for this. Let me tell you something. Now, I can see that you can't convert all students into online learning, and we should respect this. Let's go back to our physical learning environment, physical classroom. Do you think that all of the students you and I were teaching, all of them were engaged, all of them, they liked the face-to-face interaction? The answer would be not. The answer would be no, because maybe 80% would be yes, maybe 20% would be no. So when we convert this to the virtual learning environment, again, we might find 80% of the students would love that environment, because they don't need to be in a regular schedule, regular routine. They have their own pace, they learn at their own pace, they have no time pressure. But again, it's very difficult to have these 20% into your virtual learning environment, and we have to respect this. But again, what we might do is that we have to keep encouraging those students, but everyone has their own learning style, so we can't actually bring them in. We can't tell them, oh, we need you to be in there, we need you, for example, this is the best that can work for you. So I think this is a disadvantage, but what we can do is more live sessions with these people, more live sessions with these students. Maybe you can have a needs analysis where you look at your students, how they learn, why do you think virtual, for example, why do you think online learning is not suitable for you? What's the point behind that? Why this doesn't work? How can I help you, for example, do much better? Give me more suggestions and I'll work with that. So again, it's very difficult to convert all into online learning. Exactly the same thing how you do with the physical learning environment. Here we have Hiba again. She says over dependence on transition is an issue when teaching, learning a language. I agree with you. We have Dr. Firas says students need to have a pace to assess their own learning, as this would enhance the students' ownership of learning. Of course, I agree with you as well. E-learning and distance. Here we have Muhammad. He said here, e-learning and distance education does not concentrate on emotional learning. e-learning and distance education does not concentrate on emotional learning. How can I teach a language and communication with being emotionally engaged? Oh, that's big. But again, okay, let me say this. How many times you and I went to the classroom with very bad moods? How many times we're very tired? How many times we didn't feel that we want to teach? All right. So just look at that one, for example. Again, just look at when I'm doing this. If you just look at me now, you can actually get that. You can get that energy. You can get that motivation if you just like it. So the matter here is still what you can do just one time. If you just show up to your students, even if you don't feel that you want to go live, you can just you can post a short video, 2 to 3 minutes. Hi guys, how are you doing? I hope everyone is doing well. I just want to check up on you. What are you doing with the tasks that I gave you? I hope that everything is going well. I just want to tell you about the task for next week. If you just show up, even for your students, once a week, you put that short video, you still can keep them engaged. So face-to-face interaction is very important. But again, if you just put these videos, you can still keep students engaged online and be motivated. So here we have, it's amazing to use new ways of learning and teaching. Thank you very much. This was Salim said. Mar says, how can we benefit from AI? Do you mean Maher, artificial intelligence in education? Is this what you mean? Can you please explain? Is it AI, artificial intelligence? Here we have Nora. She's okay. Says here, brilliant. But what about students who have poor net or lack of technology? How are they going to follow their education or educator to communicate with peers? Okay, that's very good. You have this social media then. And again, you're not going to show up live every day, every now and then. What you can do, maybe you can video yourself for 2 or 3 minutes. You can give them tasks. You can have PowerPoint presentation, for example, presentation. You can have it for 2 or 3 minutes. Put that, speak for 5 or 10 minutes, and send that to their WhatsApp, to their Facebook. Social media is there. It can still help you if they don't have. And I think that's a lot of people, a lot of students, they have smartphones with internet connection, with internet facilities, so still can use that as well. Amjad here, she said here, when designing an online course, it has been intriguing and engaging. I agree with you, because it's a new learning experience. At the same time, we're engaging with it because we don't have any other option. Okay. So Ahmed Akasha here asked question, do you think learning online is the plan just in order to delete the role of teachers in Jordan? No, of course not. The teacher is the core of learning process. The teacher is there. The teacher, by the way, is the mastermind. The teacher is the one who plans the materials. The teacher is the one who engages the students. The teacher is the one who structure and design the materials, keeps students motivated, gives feedback to students, and I see technology is only a tool monitored by the teacher. So that's by no means, of course, that we're ignoring the role of the teacher. Please keep asking questions. Put your question on the chat box. It's only you and me and the chat box. Put your questions. I'm sorry if I didn't read all the questions, but I'm going to read all of them. And I will give you feedback. It's not meant here by any means to ignore your messages, but I'm trying to catch up with those. So here Tarf, she said, here, agree, giving feedback is very important. And Rola Said, peer assessment studies, students give feedback on each other's work. I agree with you, and that's in itself. I think that we talked about this already, Rola, is that when you give questions to students, reflective questions, and that's what actually the research has confirmed. When you give time to your students, when you give them a task and they take their own time, when you give them a task and you give them reflective questions, their meta-learning improves, their meta-learning develops with time, and that's what raises their self-assessment that is useful for learning. Why I'm learning this, why I'm doing this, what the teacher wants from me, how can I, for example, improve my language that way. And remember again, when you give challenging tasks to your students, so give them, for example, the 30-second. I'm gonna post that in the chat box after we are done. If you give them, for example, a task like this, for example, connected speech, how many times when we, for example, go outside the classroom environment, our students don't understand the language outside. So if you give them a challenging task like that, students would question why, oh my God, I thought that my listening skills were really amazing. Now I don't understand what has been said. What about, for example, the language in here? How can I do it? So again, putting these questions or giving these exercises would raise so many questions for the students, and of course this would lead to raising their self-assessment. Okay, Faisal says, we want tips to increase the students themselves when they study the English language, especially through distance learning. Again, what you need to do, give them instructions, not instructions, I mean the design, the structure. So for Jeremy Harma and Scrivener, those are the English language experts in the world. In their books, Teaching English and the Practice of English Language Teaching, they said it's not actually the skill, it is the task. So for example, I can give you a speaking task that is very simple, but the way how I structure it would be more challenging. The same thing what Daniel Goleman said in his book, Flow. So if you give, for example, a task that is above the linguistic competency for students, then you keep raising the bar, and students are motivated, so they keep learning and learning. So it's the task. I would refer back again to my 30-second exercise. That was wonderful exercise when my students thought that, oh my God, this is only 74 words, but we have 4 questions out of that. We spent 20 minutes on that. That's the thing. It's the task. It's how you structure it. It's not the skill itself. Let's see here what we have. So distance learning gives us as teachers to know many skills. The students are able to do they successfully critically thinkers and also reflective students. Yes, I agree with that. Buhaisa said, do you think there must be compulsory lessons or tasks in schools for distance learning to encourage students to learn online? I think, yeah, why not? So when we return back to our schools, why, for example, giving students time or, for example, tasks they can do them online, and we tell them that, okay, I'm not going to look at this in the classroom, but I'm going to look at it online. Think of a flipped classroom. In a flipped classroom, when you give, for example, your teaching materials to students before they come to the class, and then when they come to the class, you just do the task with them. Think about that flipped classroom. That's wonderful. If you can do that, then will be amazing. Muhammad, he's a fabulous teacher. Here he says, where is the place of assessment in this kind of learning? I think that we talked about, Muhammad, just about, I don't know if you were with us, we just talked about, again, assessment as assessing students' language skills and assessing the process itself. Here we have Ahmed al-Najjar. In online session, it's okay to allow for post time to engage students, to give them chance to complete the task, just to make sure that they are on the right track. Yes, of course, I would agree with you. Time is going very fast. I'm afraid that I'm overrunning the time. Rula says, very useful examples of assessment. Iman, thanks for your great points, Mr. Dai, but whatever we use, the main problem we face as teachers in public schools is the number of students who engage in distance learning. Unfortunately, unfortunately we have less. Let me just see if I can read that. Unfortunately, we have we have less than 50% of students who engage, and the rest of outside this process is not learning for all. I agree with you, but again, maybe you can involve parents in this process. What, for example, about calling the parents, tell them, yes, we need to look at this process. We need to engage, to keep your children engaged in that. So it's not about yourself. It's the school, it's the parents, it's yourself. Just get with the parents, talk to the parents. We want to help your children overcome this, for example, this physical split from the classroom. We want to help them. What do you think? What's the best time, for example? I always say that just set the best time for students where you are available and functioning at the same time. and tell them, okay, so this week we're going to work, let's say, from 9 to 1. Next week we're going to work from, for example, 3 to 6. We are going to check, we are going to talk together, see, for example, how many students are joining in, work at their self-pace. Again, talk to your students, talk to the parents, and see how you can improve that. I'm afraid that I'm overrunning the time, so I just need one more minute, and that's it. Samah Adwan, she says, for the assessments we need special platform which is missing in our public schools. You don't need that. I think we have Dersak, and you can do a lot of exercise and upload these. Just check with them. I'm not sure. Here we have Taraf, how can we connect the learning to real life? And again, if you want to do this, connecting to real life means exposing students to real to authentic materials. So for example, when you bring them a listening exercise, when you bring them a reading exercise, please make sure that you bring this from the language, from the learning, from the environment. Bring them from a newspaper, from a magazine, from whatever. Take that text. If you want, you can grade it. You can just change some words in it, so for students that can understand. Take some words out of that, then put questions in it, then ask the students, and then after students understand it, then return them back or give them the original text and let them interact with it, let them summarize it, for example. Or maybe they can summarize it and talk and tell their friends what they've just read. It's not about just bringing materials and grade these materials, abridge them, make them a bit short, grade them, put simple language and give those to students. Because as Scrivener said, here we have the inputs and here we have the output. So in our brains, the input is that when for example, we have authentic materials coming in, they're processed in the brain, and then we have to, we articulate these. So for example, if I give my students authentic materials, I know these are a bit difficult, but if I give those to my students and I challenge, I put questions, very challenging ones, of course that they will produce very authentic outputs. So the thing is that refer back to the outside world, just see how the outside world is going and moving on. All right, guys. Very helpful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Esma. And thanks a lot. All right. Okay. That's wonderful. I think that I overran the time. It has been for 43 minutes now. Thank you very, very much for joining this live session. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'm really sorry if I didn't answer your comments or questions, but I promise you that I return back to these. I'm gonna look at each one of those. I'm going to respond and we'll put some useful links in the chat box. Thank you very, very much for watching this again. كل سنة وانتم سالمين، وكل سنة وإن شاء الله الأردن بألف خير والقيادة الهاشمية بألف خير. الله يعطيكم ألف عافية. Have a good night and see you.